October 15, 2004. Mann's Chinese Theater, Hollywood. The red carpet premiere of Man on Fire was in full swing, with hundreds of photographers, entertainment journalists, and fans gathered to celebrate Denzel Washington's latest film, when something happened that would transform one man's life and remind everyone present that some moments are more important than any movie. James Patterson, a 52-year-old Vietnam War veteran who had been living on the streets of Hollywood for 3 years, had positioned himself across the street from the theater not to cause trouble or seek attention, but simply to watch the excitement from a distance and remember what hope looked like when he was struggling to find any. What happened when Denzel Washington noticed him standing alone in the shadows would become one of the most powerful demonstrations of using fame for genuine good that anyone in the entertainment industry had ever witnessed. James Patterson had served 2 tours of duty in Vietnam as a Marine, earning a Purple Heart and a Bronze Star for heroism under fire. But like many veterans of his generation, his return home had been marked by challenges that civilian life hadn't prepared him to handle. James was struggling with what we now recognize as PTSD, but back then there wasn't the support system that veterans needed. Recalled Dr. Maria Santos, who later became his counselor. He had given everything to serve his country, but when he came home he felt forgotten and abandoned. A combination of untreated trauma, difficulty finding stable employment, and a brief period of substance abuse had led to the loss of his apartment, his car, and eventually his connection to the few family members who had tried to help. James wasn't the stereotypical homeless person that people imagine, explained Father Michael Chen, who ran a nearby shelter. He was clean, articulate, and deeply ashamed of his situation. He would often talk about serving his country and wondering why his service seemed to matter so little when he needed help. The night of October 15th, James had been walking through Hollywood when he noticed the excitement surrounding the Man on Fire premiere. Instead of asking for money or trying to get attention, he had simply stood across the street, watching the celebration of success and remembering what it felt like to have purpose and recognition. James told me later that he wasn't there to beg or cause problems, Father Chen recalled. He just wanted to see what happiness looked like, because he was having trouble remembering. Denzel Washington was in the middle of interviews on the red carpet, discussing his role as a former CIA operative who becomes a bodyguard, when he noticed movement across the street and saw James Patterson standing alone, wearing a worn military jacket and watching the proceedings with an expression that was part longing, part resignation. I could see this man across the street, and something about his posture and the way he was standing told me he was military. Denzel revealed in a later interview, there was something about his bearing that you recognize if you've spent time around veterans. But what caught Denzel's attention most was the profound sadness in James's demeanor, and the way he seemed to be watching the celebration not with envy, but with the kind of distance that comes from feeling completely disconnected from joy. I was in the middle of talking to Entertainment Tonight about the movie, but I couldn't concentrate because I kept seeing this man across the street who looked like he was carrying the weight of the world. Denzel remembered. What Denzel did next would shock everyone on the red carpet and create one of the most memorable moments in Hollywood premiere history. In the middle of his live television interview, Denzel stopped talking, looked directly at the camera, and said, "Excuse me for just a moment, there's someone I need to speak with." Without another word of explanation, he walked away from the interview, crossed the street through traffic, and approached James Patterson directly. "Sir," Denzel said, extending his hand to James, "I'm Denzel Washington. I noticed you standing over here, and I wanted to introduce myself. Are you by any chance a veteran?" James, stunned that the star of the evening had crossed a street full of traffic to speak with him, nodded and replied, "Yes, sir. Marine Corps, Vietnam." What Denzel said next brought tears to James's eyes and would change his life forever. "Thank you for your service, sir. I noticed you watching our celebration, and I wanted you to know that you're welcome to join us. In fact, I'd be honored if you would be my personal guest at the premiere tonight." James tried to decline, explaining that he wasn't dressed appropriately and didn't want to cause any disruption, but Denzel's response revealed the depth of his respect for veterans. "Sir, you served your country in combat. You've earned the right to be honored at any event I'm part of. If anyone has a problem with a war hero attending this premiere, they can discuss it with me personally. What happened next amazed the hundreds of people watching from the red carpet. Denzel personally escorted James across the street, introduced him to reporters as my friend James Patterson, a Marine Corps veteran and American hero, and made sure he was seated in the VIP section of the theater. The entire red carpet stopped what they were doing to watch Denzel bring this homeless veteran to the premiere. Recalled former Entertainment Tonight correspondent Mary Hart. It was clear that something extraordinary was happening, but Denzel's support for James didn't end with the movie screening. During intermission, Denzel learned more about James's situation and made a series of decisions that would transform both of their lives. Denzel asked about my circumstances, not in a pitying way, but like someone who genuinely wanted to understand and help, James recalled. He listened to my story with the same respect he would show to anyone else. After learning about James's housing situation, his struggles with PTSD, and his inability to find stable employment, Denzel made an offer that left James speechless. "James, I want to help you get back on your feet, not as charity, but because you've earned the support that every veteran deserves, and too many don't receive." What Denzel proposed would provide James with everything he needed to rebuild his life. Denzel arranged for James to stay in a furnished apartment, paid for his enrollment in a PTSD treatment program specifically designed for veterans, and coordinated with a veterans employment agency to help him find work that matched his skills and honored his military experience. Denzel didn't just throw money at the problem, Dr. Santos explained. He created a comprehensive support system that addressed all the factors that had led to James's homelessness. But perhaps most importantly, Denzel maintained a personal relationship with James throughout his recovery, checking on his progress, celebrating his achievements, and ensuring he never felt forgotten again. Mr. Washington would call me regularly, not to check up on me like I was a project, but to talk like we were friends, James reflected. He treated me with dignity and respect that I hadn't felt since I left the military. The results of Denzel's intervention were remarkable. Within 6 months, James had completed his PTSD treatment, found stable employment with a veterans organization, and moved into permanent housing. But more than the practical improvements, he had recovered his sense of purpose and self-worth. James went from being a homeless veteran who felt invisible to being a productive member of society who knew he mattered. Observed employment counselor Robert Martinez. The transformation was incredible to witness. James eventually became a counselor himself, working with other homeless veterans and using his experience to help them navigate the challenges he had overcome. "Everything I'm able to do to help other veterans comes from Mr. Washington showing me that I still had value and purpose," James explained. "He saved my life, but more than that, he helped me understand that my service and my struggles could be used to help others." The story of what happened at the Man on Fire premiere became legendary in both Hollywood and veteran advocacy circles, inspiring other celebrities to take action and raising awareness about the challenges facing homeless veterans. Denzel's gesture was powerful not just because of the immediate help he provided, but because it brought attention to the broader issue of veteran homelessness, noted Veterans Affairs advocate Linda Williams. The incident also demonstrated the impact that individual acts of kindness can have when they come from people with the resources and platform to create lasting change. What Denzel did for James proved that celebrity status is most valuable when it's used to lift up people who need lifting up, observed entertainment journalist Army Archard. In 2010, 6 years after their first meeting, James Patterson was invited to speak at a veterans fundraising event, where Denzel was being honored for his ongoing support of military causes. "Mr. Washington saw me when I was invisible," James told the audience. "He treated me with honor when I felt worthless, and he gave me hope when I had given up on myself. That night at the movie premiere, he didn't just change my life, he saved it." When asked about his decision to stop his premiere for a homeless veteran, Denzel's response revealed the values that had guided his choice. James Patterson served his country with honor and sacrifice. The least I could do was show him the respect and support he had earned. Any success I've achieved is meaningless if I can't use it to help people who have given more to this country than I ever will. That premiere was about a movie where I played someone who protects people. James was a real person who had actually protected people in combat. It seemed obvious who deserved more honor that night. October 15th, 2004. A movie premiere celebrating fictional heroism was interrupted by the recognition of real heroism, as one of Hollywood's biggest stars proved that true success means using your platform to honor people whose service and sacrifice deserve recognition and support. James Patterson learned that night that his military service still mattered, that his struggles didn't diminish his worth, and that there are people willing to help veterans rebuild their lives with dignity and purpose. Denzel Washington proved that real star power isn't about commanding attention for yourself, but about directing attention toward people who deserve recognition and support more than you do. The movie premiere that was supposed to celebrate a fictional story about protection and heroism became a real story about protecting and honoring someone who had actually lived those values in service to his country. Some premieres are remembered for the movies they celebrate. Others are remembered for the moments when real life becomes more compelling than any script, and when real heroes get the recognition they deserve from people who understand that honoring veterans isn't optional, it's a responsibility. October 15th, 2004. The night a homeless veteran learned that he hadn't been forgotten, and a movie star proved that fame is most valuable when it's used to remind people that every veteran's service matters, every person's dignity deserves respect, and every act of kindness can transform both the giver and the receiver. James Patterson got his life back because someone with power chose to use that power for someone who had given everything in service to others. Denzel Washington got the satisfaction of knowing that his success had served its highest purpose, creating hope for someone who had earned hope but lost the ability to find it on his own. The premiere that stopped for a veteran became more memorable than any movie could ever be, because it proved that the most important stories are the ones that happen when successful people remember that their success means nothing unless they use it to help people whose sacrifices made their success possible. That's what real heroism looks like. Not what you see on movie screens, but what you do when you see someone who needs help and you have the power to provide it, especially when that someone has already proven their heroism in service to their country, and all they need is someone to remember that their service still matters. October 15th, 2004. The day a movie premiere became a reminder that veterans' sacrifices deserve recognition. Homeless doesn't mean worthless, and stars shine brightest when they use their light to illuminate the heroes who walk among us unnoticed until someone with the courage and compassion to act decides to notice them. James Patterson got noticed, his life got transformed, and everyone who witnessed what happened got reminded that the most important performances happen off-screen, when real people choose to be heroic for other real people who have already proven their heroism and just need someone to remember and honor it. That's what Denzel Washington did on October 15th, 2004. He remembered, he honored, and he transformed a homeless veteran's life by treating him like the hero he had always been, but had forgotten he still was. Some nights at the movies, you watch heroes on screen. That night, everyone got to watch a real hero honor another real hero, and everyone learned what heroism actually looks like when it's genuine, immediate, and life-changing. The movie was about protecting people. The real story was about a star who actually protected someone who needed protection, support, and most of all, the recognition that his service and his worth as a human being would never be forgotten. As long as there are people like Denzel Washington willing to stop their own celebrations to make sure forgotten heroes get remembered. October 15th, 2004. Unforgettable, not because of any movie, but because of what happened when movies stopped mattering and real life, real service, and real heroism took center stage, where they belonged, where they always belong, and where they were honored by someone who understood that honoring veterans isn't something you do when it's convenient. It's something you do whenever you encounter them, especially when they're struggling, especially when they need hope, and especially when you have the power to provide both hope and practical help. That's what heroes do for heroes, what Denzel Washington did for James Patterson, what real success looks like when it serves real purpose for people who have served real purposes that matter more than any movie ever could.